Bastian, thank you very much. Next we have Dr. Anjali Parasnis. She's the Associate Director, the Energy and Resources Institute here in Mumbai.
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Greenwood, all the dignitaries sitting here on the dais, and of course off the dais. At the outset, I would like to really appreciate the warm-up exercise that we had, and that gave me a very good insight about the diversity of the group that we have today. And it's really wonderful to have diverse stakeholders today. So it's really nice to represent TERI. In that regard, I would like to mention that we talked about the NGOs today and the research institutions, and I would like to mention that TERI is a not-for-profit research organization, and the difference between any NGO in India and TERI is that we do not take any stand, but we work as a third-party institution. Another very interesting thing what I would also like to mention is that Dr. R.K. Pachori, who is also the chairman of IPCC, is heading TERI. Now going to the next, that is the outline of my presentation. And now I would just like to mention that since we have limited time today, I would like to touch upon the important aspects, but I have divided my presentation into two parts. Like, how do we really work with the corporate sector, and secondly, what are the issues or the points that the corporate sector could integrate while developing their water management plans. Now, as we know, and as we have heard from Mr. Mishra also, that in India we have lot of water availability. However, how do we channelize that water, and how do we actually use? There is a huge gap between the two. So as you see here, we have plenty of water available, but when it actually comes to utilization of it, we really have very limited scope, because most of the water gets drained out. And similarly, as you can see, that there is a growing demand for water, and it will be very difficult now henceforth to really match this demand and supply gap. Now, as you can see that the average annual per capita water availability also has decreased drastically, because the population is increasing, urbanization, and the demand for agriculture industries is also growing. So as we have also seen from the previous slides, that water scarcity in India will be on the rise. And of course there will be competing freshwater uses. If you see the world average also, agriculture uses most of the water. In India the scenario is not different. However, this year, if you have seen that there is acute water shortage, and again I would refer back to our warm-up discussion, and it was very noticeable that there is no government representation over here. So maybe since TERI is very closely working with the government, because we really believe that when all the stakeholders can come together, only then we can come up with some sustainable solution. So in that regard also we are working very closely with the government. So maybe some of the slides you can consider that the government is getting represented today. So I would like to again bring your attention to one point over here, that in Maharashtra this year we are facing very severe drought. The farmers have to hack their orchards. Not only that, keeping the cattle alive is again a great challenge. When we have visited these sites, we have realized that not only the cattle and the farmers, which is always the main focus, but the wildlife also is suffering very badly. And because of that, we also have man-animal conflicts. And through this conference, I would also make an appeal that we should also maybe put some emphasis and focus on preserving our wildlife and acknowledge their needs as well. Now, we know that there are compounding impacts. There have been droughts, there have been floods, and we have seen from TERI side that it is very important to assess our data appropriately and take maybe a larger time span to really come up with a concrete solution. Now here you can see that we have always suffered through drought as well as through floods, but the impacts would be exacerbated because of the impacts of climate change. Now I'm very glad to tell you that we are working with Government of Maharashtra to make the entire state level climate change action plan. And we have really assessed the entire state in terms of precipitation levels, in terms of temperature, that is mean as well as maximum. And we wish to mention here that in our prediction is that in next 20 years time, there will be increased precipitation, there could be floods, and there could be also droughts. So there could be extreme events which are very likely in the case of Maharashtra. A very interesting observation here is that the minimum temperature is going to rise by 1 or 2 degrees centigrade. That means our evening and night could be warmer, and that would lead people to use more of AC, more of fan, and again that cycle continues, that we keep emitting more of carbon dioxide. Now this slide just shows that the maximum temperature again is going to increase in Nagpur or the Vidarbha area of Maharashtra. Now what we have done in this regard is that we have also developed the vulnerability index. That means which are the districts of Maharashtra which are more vulnerable or prone to the climate change climate change impacts, and how are they equipped for taking any action. Accordingly, we have labeled or tagged Nandurbar as the most vulnerable district. So we have actually gone to the 6 districts and done a very critical assessment of several things like what is their water availability, how are the farmers trying to cope up, how are different societies trying to cope up with situations, and suppose if there is a flood, are the rivers ready to really absorb that quantity of water, what will be the extent of soil erosion, and what will be the farmers' response to the entire thing. And we have really come up with very some statistics which shows that there will be acute water shortage in most of the areas of Maharashtra, and that is very recently seen in the drought prone areas as well. Now, taking that into consideration, I'll quickly move on to some aspects that we wish to address. Like, for example, we have launched our wetland management program. If you have seen the coastal Maharashtra and in general in Maharashtra, we are very rich in water resources. Maharashtra is a state where we have maximum number of dams, but still we are facing the water shortage. That again points to the fact that we don't have very well equipped water management systems. So to address these issues, we thought that only when the diverse stakeholders come together, only then we can really come up with some concrete solution. Now, very recently on February 4th, we have been celebrating World Wetlands Day in association with Ramsar and several industry partners as well. This year we had a celebration with Government of Maharashtra. As you can see, the Chief Secretary and Dr. Pachauri and Ms. Wahida Rahman, who is a very famous film actress. She is our brand ambassador, and the Principal Secretary of Urban Development. We have really come up with some resolutions in regard to how do we preserve our water bodies, especially the freshwater bodies, so that also could be used as a resource for supply of rural population as well as urban areas. So the objectives of our program is that we work with the corporate, government as well as community level and come up with some concrete solutions. This is just one example I wish to give you. We are working with the BPCL's LPG bottling plant at Turan. They had some fresh water systems. However, they were not using that water into their day-to-day activities. So we have given them some plan so that by that in just 6 years time they can get their complete return on investment, as well as there could be an annual saving. So this is just one example to show you that we are working very closely with industries and trying to give them some innovative solutions so that they can conserve on water. Another example is that we often say that we need to recycle our water, we must use the sewage treated water, etc. But there are again some issues, like for example, here there was one water body in Navi Mumbai, and they were trying to use 5 mld of the sewage treated water. So it's very nice to say that okay, we can treat the sewage treated water, but then there could be some problems. Like in this case, when we visited the site, there was no riparian zone, it was completely concretized. So we also need to sensitize our architects and civil engineers to actually preserve the water bodies and use it effectively. So we saw that there was a lot of algal bloom, there was lack of riparian zone, no food chain established. So in effect, we established a nutrient sink, and we also established the riparian zone. So sort of we try to renaturalize the process, and through that now we have brought the algal bloom under control. So like that, we also wish to provide a lot of solutions. Now working with societies again is a very important aspect of water resource management, and also through preservation of water bodies. This is again one example where we have involved societies, because as you know, in India, water bodies earlier used to belong to say a societal group or to the temples or to a village authority. However, what has happened now is because of the centralized supply of water resources, nobody goes to the water reservoirs to fetch water, which was the case earlier, say just 50 years back. And so whatever is out of sight is out of mind, and we just don't care about the water bodies. And that is what we observed. However, when we effectively integrate the societies and create awareness among them, this is one example where we have very effectively managed that water body. We have also created a renewable energy park so that people get awareness about several different technologies related to renewable energy as well as water resource management. And as you can see, there is a huge impact of the entire project. Now, again, when I'm talking about the societies and several diverse stakeholders, it could be industries, it could be residential sector, and also the government. Here, we are also trying to implement one project called EcoCity project, and that is again with Navi Mumbai Municipal Corporation. This is one program where we all wish to come together and work, so you are most welcome to join hands with us. Here, we wish to have implementation of green buildings, and of course, the faucets, etc. could be made mandatory. So we are trying to see what could be made mandatory for residential and industrial sector, and how can we have policy interventions with the government, and some incentives also maybe could be given. We also wish to have implementation of Griha on large scale, because ultimately that is a tool which will help us conserve water at the residential and industrial level. So there are several aspects through which water could be conserved, and I'm just rushing through these slides. I'm very sorry for that, but you're most welcome to visit our website or contact me anytime later. So there are several opportunities for collaborations. We feel that the models for integrating wetlands in the water management chain is very important aspect. Only that will really give us some solution for the future. Then models for financial and environmental sustainability also need to be developed. Some of it we have already done, and I have provided you the examples. We also need to have the wetland status report. It could be a physical map or the GI, using tools like GIS, etc. We really need to come up with a very concrete map. That is something we are working on. The water budgeting is another aspect which we are discussing with the government. Analyzing the vulnerabilities of water resources to increasing climate fluctuations is something again where we need your collaboration and help as well. Water recycling and conservation of biodiversity and wildlife, which again depends on the water and the water bodies, and only that can give us a very healthy ecosystem, is something we wish to do with you, and we could have several different stakeholders as our partners, and you are most welcome to work with TERI. With this, I would like to thank you, and I wish that all the lakes in India are as clean as this one that you see here. Thank you.